Hello and welcome to Rod's Tabletop Hoops. Today, I'm going to review a college set 01 or 01 published by Joe Bryan of Bank Shot Basketball Sideline Strategy Games. Just within the last month or so, Joe has come up with 3 college sets. This is the first of 3 different sets of cards. They include 30 teams per set. They generally have been on sale for $24. The regular price will be $29 for the printed copies of these. And I purchased the first set in the series of 3. And I was just going to break down those top 30 teams, and I pretty much broken them down into a couple of categories because it's a very interesting, eclectic selection, if you will. So what I was going to first do is probably look at some teams that were the runner-ups. There's some definite runner-up teams, in addition to some very interesting teams with unique characteristics, followed by some championship teams, and then the ones that are just off the charts. I don't know exactly what the theory behind Joe's selection of some of these are. I kind of figured on some of them, but not all of them. But anyway, the quick stats on the 30 teams in the Series 01 for Bank Shot. Of the 30 teams, 22 of them were ranked in the top 25 in their respective conferences, and so you're going to get a lot of good teams. So that's over 70% are ranked. 11 of the teams were champions, NCAA champions, won the national championship, and I count at least 3 teams that were runners up in their losing in the championship game, and then I think there's some other teams that barely, made it to the Final Four. The Kentucky Wildcats of '92. I'll get into that. In addition, breaking them down by decade, there are 3 teams from the 1970s, 10 teams from the 1980s, 9 teams from the 1990s, and the remaining 8 teams are from the year 2000 to present. So definitely a mix of teams, not exactly all competitive teams. There was a little bit of a theory behind Joe's selection. I think it was he doesn't want all the great teams playing all the great teams. It'll make it very difficult to have any statistical realism because the greatest defensive teams are going to just knock down the other great defensive and offensive teams. So I see some of the logic behind some of this. Some of them are a little bit interesting, and some of them I don't agree with necessarily, but you know what? They're going to be fun to have in the league anyway. So here we go. I'm going to start with some runner-ups, and the first runner-up team is the Gonzaga Bulldogs of 2021. They went into the championship. I think I misprinted that one. It says 13-5. It says 31-1 overall. I think I messed that one up. But anyway, they are a very good team. They went all the way to the finals. They lost to the Baylor Bears, and they were led by Drew Timme, who shot the heck out of the ball that year. This team has got a lot of really good players. They are also one of the most efficient offensive teams in college basketball in 2021. So, their offense says, let's see what it says here. It says C. So put that on the stand. Defense is a -1. Press is X. Pace is +3. So you add 3 cards for the Gonzaga Bulldogs, who had a fantastic year before losing in the final game to Baylor. I think their star player, like I said, was Drew Timme. They also had Corey Kispert, who went to the NBA as well. And Corey, there he goes. He plays the small forward slot, and he can shoot the lights out. I believe he was one of those guys who shot over 40% from the 44% from 3. Also about 88% from the free throw line, and that's why I came up with these envelopes, because I can't remember for the life of me which teams who was in the starting lineup for some of these teams. So I came out with a printed envelope for each of these teams, and I can modify if that record is wrong for Gonzaga. I can fix it because it's on my computer and an ancient inkjet printer that I utilize. So, but I strongly urge you to write down some lineups so you're not going through Basketball Reference every single time you wanted to play a college game here because I don't know. Some of these teams you'll see coming up are going to be quite tricky to understand who was in the starting lineup or who's a sixth man and all of that. So anyway, Gonzaga, fantastic team. Great choice by Joe. And let's see, number 2, I've got the UNLV Runnin' Rebels. I put LJ on this little envelope here. It's Larry Johnson. Larry threw in about 23 points a game and 11 boards. Stacy is Stacy Ogman. I was running out of room on the line right there because he does 3 different stats really well. Rebounds, assists, and points. And Greg Anthony and Anderson Hunt. That is a heck of a ball club. They went all the way to the finals, and they lost in the championship game in 1991. So, probably lost to Duke. I'm not sure. Another runner-up team, Orangemen, Syracuse of 1987. Most people are familiar with Derek Coleman, Ronnie Cycli, Sherman Douglas. Greg Monroe. They had just a great lineup, and let's see what kind of pace they played at. They scored 83 points a game, gave up 73 points a game. And there you are. They're fast breaks at double A, which is really, really good. Pace is really 0, though. So that's what you have. There's Sherman with Douglas, a great point guard. 84 to 99 on assists. That'll be a really fun team to play. And the final runner-up that I could find in this list, correct me if I'm wrong, is the Kentucky Wildcats. Of course, they had, they gave them a double A on offense, a +1 on defense, pace -2, a little on the slower side, but they certainly had some great players with Jamal Mashburn. He's the most notable player on the team. There's also just some great role players on this team as well. But 29-7, 12-4 in the conference, SEC, did fantastic. Okay, next group of players and teams I want to take a look at really quickly are competitive teams, yet they just weren't in the elite. Let's just say that. And the first of those teams I'm going to show you will be the Princeton Tigers. Now, Joe strategically put the Tigers in here because the Tigers were known as well, you can call them the best defensive team, but really they take the pace down. They scored 63 points a game. They gave up only 43 points a game. So that'll be a really interesting team to put together. But you can see Princeton, let's see what their pace is, -13. So that means you remove 13 cards from the typical 70 card deck for each of the 10 minutes of the half. So a 70 card deck, depending on what the other team is doing, say they were neutral, you could might only have 57 cards in there. So Princeton's going to really slow that team down. And honestly, they don't have a lot of well-known players on the team. And Moeller, Eastwick, Jackson, Leftwich, Marquardt. I just did not I wasn't even sure of that starting lineup. I really had to look that one up very carefully. So next team, another competitive team going back to the 1980s. I'm going to say the BYU Cougars will be fun just for the simple fact that they had Danny Ainge. Ainge, let's see if I can find his card. He is truly the star. They also had Greg Kite on that team, Fred Psycho Roberts of Celtics lore, and, a lot of players like that. So definitely a competitive team at 25-7, but Danny is truly the star. He had a couple amazing moments in the tournament. Next competitive team I'm going to throw out there is the St. John's University Redmen from the 80s. Everybody loves this team. Bill Wennington, Walter, The Truth, Barry, Chris Mullen, and don't forget a young Mark Action Jackson coming off the bench. So, you got some really, really great players on this team. Some had some pretty good NBA careers. There's Chris Mullen. Fantastic foul shooter. Very good offensive player. Can do almost anything with the ball, kind of a small version. Getting back to the teams within Joe Bryan's 30-team selection, college set 0-1. These are the champions. Now, you don't have to explain too much about some of these because they are just that good. And we got the Michael Jordan freshman On the 1981-82 North Carolina Tar Heels, they also have James Worthy, Matt Doherty, Jimmy Black. They've just got a lot of really good players. Sam Perkins, obviously, another great player. And they had to go down to the wire. Jordan hit that jump shot at the end of the game, as most remember, against Georgetown. And his career was never the same after that. Villanova. Oh, and by the way, everybody wants to see what a Michael Jordan card looks like. Let's just go off the cuff here and just see what the freshman Michael Jordan looks like. He gets better, folks. This is not even his best year. That's his freshman year. Next is the 2018 Villanova Wildcats, won it all, 36-4. They start playing close to 40 games a season. It's almost half an NBA season, a lot of games. Some good players. Mikal Bridges on this team. Not too much explanation necessary. Once again, I just played my first game with these 72 UCLA Bruins, another fantastic team. Walton leads the team. Jamal Keith Wilkes back in the day. Henry Bibby, Greg Lee. Some good players on that team. Ran up the score with 95 points a game, 30-0 for that team. 1988, I believe Larry Brown coached this team with Danny Manning, Kevin Pritchard, and this Kansas Jayhawks snuck out of there despite only being third in the Big Eight. They won the national championship, so quite a coaching job. Works great. One of the top clutch players in college basketball history, Christian Laettner, Grant Hill, Bobby Hurley. Just Andrew Lang. You got a lot of good players on this loaded Duke team, but even they needed that miracle shot in one of their ACC, what was it? NCAA tournament semifinal or near finals to defeat Kentucky. And Christian Laettner was a hero there, and they went on to win the championship. Laettner, a multi-time champion in the Duke history books. 2004 UConn, another great team. Just a lot of solid players. Ben Gordon was their shooting guard down there. And they just had Emeka Okafor as well. Tremendous defensive player. 33-6 champions. Michigan State just played them. Magic Johnson leading the way with Greg Kelser supporting. Jay Vincent supporting. Very good, solid team. The 2021 Baylor Bears, 28-2, 13-1, had a fantastic year, and they blew out Gonzaga in the championship. A lot of players and a lot of good role players. Of course, these guys won back-to-back titles. The Florida Gators, Keem Noah, Al Horford. They just had some Turian Green. They just had some really good players for back-to-back years. 33-6, can't go wrong with that. Louisville Cardinals with never nervous Purvis Ellison. He wasn't even a senior yet. Milt Wagner, just a very experienced team. 32-7, went all the way, scored 79 points a game. And of course, you've got the Georgetown Hoyas of 1984. Let's see, they slow the pace down to -3. They have David Wingate, Reggie Miller. And of course, they had some guy named Patrick Ewing who led the way. Let's check out that defense down there. A block from 35 to 73, foul 74 to 80, 81 to 86 foul while shooting. So he's going to block some shots, but he's got to watch those foul difficulties. But either way, this team was just a beastly defensive team, and they played in a tough era. They had to face off against the Houston Cougars once, so good victory for Georgetown. And finally, I'm going to get into these weirdo oddball teams. This little group of 6 or 7 teams is probably the most interesting. One is the 1991-92 Prairie View Panthers. And the Panthers, they could really not do anything. You can see their scores. 8.6 for Howard, 6.9 points a game for Martin, 8.1 for ball. This team went 0-28. I was going to make a quick mention. It's one of the few errors I've found so far. Some of the cards for Bank Shot, it gave the record for Prairie View as 0-32. And I looked it up a couple different ways, and I think they were 0-28. And you'll find throughout maybe almost half of these teams, just this card, card with the record and the press, defense, and pace ratings, the record is incorrect. And it seems like it's incorrect by increments of 4, like a team that was 12-16, it shows them as 12-20. I may be bringing that one up pretty soon. But a lot of the teams, it'll say, they'll be 32-7, it'll say 32-1 or something. So there's just a couple errors on those team cards. I don't know what got into the computer that just started spitting out a little bit of misinformation there. But other than that, not a big deal. Here's the next one I just find quite amusing. It's the Southeast Missouri State Redhawks, 12-16. I think the card, it's listed as 12-20, but I could not find any data supporting that. It's 12-16, and they were in the OVC conference, finished 7th. So Joe must have a liking for the Missouri State Redhawks. So anyway, there you go. A very interesting team. Gives it, you can play one of the best teams in this set against them and see how many points you can drill them by. NC State Wolfpack. This team wasn't that bad, but just another team is 4th in the ACC. Not a super duper amazing team, but they still scored 89 points a game pretty fast, and they had a couple good offensive players as well. Another team, Washington Huskies. Wasn't the Brandon Roy-led ones. It was a team that had Spencer Haas and Lorenzo Romar as coach. This team was quite mediocre, 19-13, just 8-10 in Pac-10 play. Not exactly sure why they're included, except that they decided to put a team there that's just a different type of opponent, some kind of competitive opponent. Someone's got to be the Washington Generals to the Harlem Globetrotters teams, I guess, here, if anyone gets that reference. So, Washington Huskies. We got the Wisconsin Badgers, 18-11, but just 8-10 in league play. 7th in the Big Ten. Nothing special, just a very mediocre team, but, they finished over 500, so they threw them in there. And finally, one of the weird ones, Bankshot Basketball's 87-88 Southern Illinois Salukis. That's Walt Frazier's alma mater. They scored 83 points, gave up 84 points. They were just 12-16. And let's see if they got their team card record correct, or is it 12-20. See, increments of 4. I don't know exactly what's going on there. But once again, there are some oddball teams in the top 30 here. But there's plenty of competitive teams. There's plenty of fun teams to play. And so that's a wrap-up of the top 30 for College Set 01 for Bankshot Basketball. I'll put a listing of the teams for Set 02 and Set 03 also here, because they're both, they're going to capture some other aspects of the history of college basketball. I think they Set 02 has the Houston Cougars of 1983 and Indiana State's Sycamores with Larry Bird from 1979. Set 3, they've got like the Virginia Cavaliers with Ralph Sampson and that great set of teams. Ralph was really one of the great college basketball centers in history, just for the Virginia Cavaliers, who also had Othell Wilson and Jeff. Well, they didn't have Jeff Lamp at the time. They had Rick Carlisle as their forward. The 81 team had Lamp. So anyway, that's a quick review of all 30 teams for Set 01 of Bankshot Basketball's college series. Hope you have a great day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Rod's Tabletop Hoops.